Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode of the EdUp Experience. And no, we will never run out of gas in our tanks here because there's too many important conversations to have across higher education. I always tell my audience, maybe joke, it's not a joke, it's actually true, that I'm booked Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 Central every single day for about 3 to 4 months in advance on average. That's how often we do this podcast. So my brain's full. My brain's full of information all the time, and sometimes it's hard to get it out. So obviously, I do have to get it out or I explode. Same thing with Elvin Freitas, co-founder and producer of the podcast. So we do the EdUp wrap-up. If you follow us on LinkedIn, I write the EdUp wrap-up, which is I take every week, I take one of the highlights, one of the podcasts, and I highlight that college leader. I like to fold in a movie theme around it to make it a lot more interesting to read because, it's more fun to read stuff that's tied to pop culture. We have the EdUp subscription service where you can subscribe to the EdUp Experience if you want original content, get access to early content, all of those things. What else do we have? We have EdUp editorials where you can write. Maybe you have something you want to write about your college or university, and you went to the trade publications, or you don't want to have to go to the trade publications. You can bring it to the EdUp Experience. We publish it and put it out to our global audience. So you can write, you can come on the podcast, you can co-host. There's lots of ways to be part of the conversation, and for me to get all this information out of my head. Got to get it out. Got to get it out to all of you. It's packed and it comes in daily, and I go, oh, what about this? And oh, what about that? So today is an awesome day for me because one of the avid listeners of the podcast is a first-time co-host today. And I wanted to wait until I had her here live on the podcast to call her out because she basically sent me a message and said, if you don't let me co-host, I'm going to stop listening. So I was like, when do you want to come on? You can come on anytime because, we want our listeners. No, she didn't do that. She said she enjoyed the podcast and she wanted to come on. And we always say, this is your podcast. We built this for you to be part of the conversation. So let me bring her in now. Ladies and gentlemen, she's Dr. Amanda Michelli. She is a student success specialist at Rice University. Amanda, welcome to an EdUp Mic. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that introduction. And you pronounced my name correctly. Did I already mention how to pronounce that, or you just
No,
that?
I actually took a shot at it and then I realized as I was saying it that I never asked you how to say it the correct way. So I'm glad.
It's very rare that someone nails it, and you nailed it. So thank
Is
you.
there a little Italiano maybe in there? Michelli?
It is. It is. It's actually pronounced Michele, I think, if you pronounce it Italian-y, but I got married. It's my married name, and that's how they pronounced it. So that's how I pronounce it.
Well, I have the Italian last name Salustio, so I
There
better get it right, or else my mother and father-in-law, who are from Italy, will literally kick my you-know-what.
Understood.
I'm glad to have you here. And can you tell me what brought you here and why you were excited to come and co-host? Because I think people don't believe I'll have them as co-hosts. I say it, but they don't believe it.
So it's truly a bucket list item. So I'm so grateful to be here. I've started listening to podcasts on my long commute to Rice, which Dr. Barnhouse might be able to identify with. And I found this early on, and I just appreciate the conversational nature, the guests that you bring on. I have my background is with the community college, so I really appreciate that you include community college and university presidents. And so I had to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
I was asking you more than one question because I wanted to see if you were going to pull the rookie co-hosting mistake, which you did do, which is fine because everybody does do it. But that's saying the name of the guest before I introduce them. So we got you good. I was walking you into it, but you did great.
And I should know better because I've heard this happen before, but
it's second nature.
I got too excited. What can I say?
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's Dr. Richard Barnhouse. He's the president at Waukesha County Technical College. See, I got the name right and then messed up the rest.
No, that was good. That was really, really good. It's a great way to start. Everybody, by the way, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. And Amanda, great to spend some time with you as well. Everybody outside of the state of Wisconsin confuses the name Waukesha, Waukesha. It's Waukesha. County Tech College. But thanks for having me today. Thrilled to be here with you.
Thanks for being here. It's funny because it's not funny. It's real. It's like the time of technical colleges. It's like it is. And so we want to know sort of level set for us, because this is always exciting. Where are you located? Who do you serve? And how do you serve them?
If you're finding value in these conversations, consider supporting Elvin and Joe. As a supporter, you'll get early ad-free access, plus exclusive leadership-focused content. It's only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or even gift a subscription to a colleague at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Yeah, great question. So we're located Waukesha, WCTC. There you go, Joe. You can just call it WCTC.
I will do that from now on.
Yeah, WCTC is located in one of the closest burbs of the city of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And so the area that we're in, there's about 400,000 or 500,000 residents. And then in Milwaukee, of course, I think the metro area is significantly larger, over 1 million or so in the metro area. Now, for a lot of parts of the country, that's tiny. So, Amanda, in Houston, 1 million people is, you pass those folks on the street getting to campus.
Yikes!
Right. And then in other parts of the country, 400,000 people is bigger than any city in the state. So we're sort of in that sweet spot in population, I think. And so, the college and the Wisconsin Technical College system has been around since, I think, about 1911. And it's changed dramatically over the years. And so we serve about 18,000 students at WCTC annually. And we work really, really closely with business and industry, as well as folks in higher ed, to make sure that we've got the right kind of curriculum and content. But as you were saying, it's, it seems like it's the time of technical colleges. I think there's no doubt that that's true, but I would say that it's not because we're technical colleges. It's because we've changed very dramatically over the years and evolved to meet the needs of the local and regional economies that we serve. And so, as Amanda knows, I worked at Rice for a while. I've worked at larger institutions like the University of South Carolina main campus in Columbia, and I've also worked in Florida. And I was a grad assistant in Michigan. And to all those presidents who are grad assistants, that's really important part of your trajectory, because it sort of sets a baseline for you. So, as far as the tech system is concerned in WCTC, we've really evolved to meet the emerging needs of what's happening. And we're able to pivot very quickly. We're able to invest or de-invest in programs very quickly. And we serve, sure, technical is in our name and it has been forever. But we've got a very large arts and science, School of Arts and Science, where we teach the liberal arts. And we've got programs from culinary to cybersecurity to a full business school, to diesel tech, diesel mechanic, to robotics and automation, and the whole calculus sequence plus physics. And we've just implemented a really robust artificial intelligence program, both academically and an applied AI lab, because we could see where the market was headed. So that's just a little bit, but I think that it's not so much so that it's finally the tech college's time. I think it's because the tech colleges have evolved in ways that maybe many other parts of the academy have not.
And I'll pass it to you, man, in just a sec, but I think you're right. And the evolution doesn't come without change management. And change management is kind of a big deal in higher ed. If you haven't heard about shared governance before, I mean, what's that? What's that thing? What's that thing called shared governance? But you're right, technical, and you said a word that doesn't come up very often, which is de-invest. And what we see and what I have seen in all of my interviews is a expansion of programs, expansion of initiative. We need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do this. And all of a sudden you're doing so many things, maybe not any of them very well. And you go, wait a minute, what do we have to stop doing so that we can invest our time and energy and money into these things that we are going to be differentiated for. So that word de-invest, it just isn't common. And I think you're right. Technical colleges have been more agile.
Yeah. And so I think the de-investment is really important. And in the academy, it's a horrible word. It's not quite as elevated as saying that a college has to operate like a business, because if you say that, to your senate or collegium, you're certainly going to walk out of there with some bruises, right? But almost close to that as well is de-investing in programs intentionally. And the way we look at it is a couple of things. It's not just enrollment today, but it's where is enrollment tomorrow. It's talking with people in business and industry, whether it's a student who's coming out of our business school into finance, or whether it's somebody who's working in robotics or even carpentry or electrician, whatever it is. Where is this career going over the next several of years? And the other thing we look at is, what are the wages? So there have been some programs that we've cut, one probably in the past year or so, where the wages coming out in our mind were unacceptable. And we spoke to folks in that industry and in that field in the greater Milwaukee, southeastern Wisconsin area, and said, look, we're not going to, unless these wages change, we're not going to educate people in this field and ask them to spend 2 or 3 years in college and then come out and make this wage. Right? That's irresponsible of us. Even if we post what the wage is likely to be when you graduate, it's irresponsible of us to continue to do that for the sake of enrollment. And so we've decided to trim some of those programs where industry will not pay a wage that is reasonable, I would say, even to live on. And, I think that there are some of those things that are in the traditional liberal arts too, that should be considered. And frankly, I'm a liberal arts guy. I worked at, the University of Wisconsin for a long time, and liberal arts was a big part of what we did. But if the wage coming out is 30 grand and they're paying 150,000 for the education, there needs to be some quick calculus done there to think, what are we in the business of doing here? And I'm not suggesting that things need to change at large across the board, but it certainly needs to be a conversation point of, what are you setting your students up for?
It's fuzzy math.
Can't have any of that, Amanda.
Yeah, no, it is. And part of that, and Amanda, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but higher ed hasn't really changed its philosophy or thinking. We like to think that we have over the past 150 years. And so that's why we're still doing some of the same things. And Amanda, I don't know if that's what you see. You're at a very different institution at Rice.
I think it's challenging, and institutions of higher ed are typically not known for moving quickly. I think universities, especially those very proud of their tradition, maybe even more slowly. Although, obviously, I think Rice is doing a great job at working with the community. But I think there's a lot of room, obviously, still for improvement. And I was very curious, just in that regard, what suggestions or advice do you have for universities, right, to be a little bit more like the technical and community colleges when it comes to developing partnerships with community organizations and businesses, in large part to make sure that our students have jobs when they're leaving?
The first thing I would say is universities and technical and community colleges need to do the same thing, but specifically universities, is take responsibility for community prosperity.
Epic.
Period. Right? Take responsibility. Whatever city or region you're in, own the fact that you have some responsibility for the economic prosperity and therefore the community prosperity that you reside in. If colleges and universities take that seriously, then they will meet with and talk with folks in business and industry, and not just say, yeah, we hear you, but trust us, we're PhDs, we know better, right? And that's often what happens. But to invite those folks into curriculum conversations, that's really tough to do, because that's not the way we do things in higher education. But we spend a lot of time. We've got over 1,400 people, professionals in business and industry from all walks of professions, on advisory committees for every program we have at the college. And we're sharing the curriculum, we're sharing the textbook, we're sharing the things our faculty are talking about. And then we're asking those group of experts in the field, in the greater southeastern Wisconsin area, is this right? Does this still matter? And we get some really good feedback about what does and what doesn't. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make, and I'll throw myself in there too, because, I've been in higher education my whole career. I think we believe that we know what's best. And we're finding out now that we may have been right in the past when knowledge was a premium. It's no longer a premium with AI. And I would argue as soon as the internet came online, I think mathematicians would say it ended when the calculator really became prominent in higher education. I was looking at a newspaper article from 1985 where the faculty were saying that the downfall of higher education was upon us because the calculator was now being used across institutions. So I think that it starts with taking responsibility, not saying it, but taking it. If you're a college president, university president, you are responsible. And it doesn't mean to just supply people to Silicon Valley, but you're responsible for the city or the town you reside in. And if you take it seriously, you'll meet with folks, you'll ask them about your curriculum and compare it to what's happening in the industry, and you'll make changes based on that, and that will lead to different things.
Do you think that it's hard for some universities to take responsibility, or maybe that we whoever, the royal we, avoid it because, let me rephrase. There's economic impact reports. Every college university puts out some kind of report on their economic impact.
Did you see my eyes roll?
I did. And because it's performative in most instances, it's like, well, we've done this and look at the impact we've had. But if you really track it, if you really are getting down to economic impact, it has to be more meaningful than just a performative statement about economic impact. It has to show the partners, and it has to show the apprenticeships, or there's all these different parts of economic impact beyond the result, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's about saving, securing, amplifying the businesses and industry in your region. That's success, right? We can do anything we want with numbers. I bet, I think there's roughly 4,000 colleges and universities left in the country because obviously many have closed.
Yep.
Every single one would say, you get a return of $12 for every dollar or $9 for every dollar. Everyone is going to say that. But if the community doesn't feel that, if there isn't ingenuity and startups and things like that happening because you're there, if businesses aren't thriving because you're there, then that $1 to $12, talking point doesn't matter.
Be forgettable.
What are you actually doing that impacts not in 10 years, not in 5, but in 2 or 4? And if you've been there for 100 years, you better be impacting tomorrow morning. So I think that's part of it, because every college can argue that they have an impact. Of course they do, naturally. But unless you can point to, this company has survived because of us and our graduates, this company has taken off and their market share has gone up, or this company has grown, or we've kept this company in our state, which is really important to the state legislature. Unless you can speak to those things, that other ratio doesn't matter.
I've heard so many people begin a sentence with, we have a student that did X, Y, or Z. And you think about the hundreds and thousands of graduates that we have, and our storytelling capabilities have to be rebuilt to regain the public trust. That's kind of what you're talking about. How do we make the public perception of higher ed better? And I know you see that too, Amanda. I mean, there are students every single day and parents that are just going, I don't know. I mean, what is this going to get me or my student or my family?
It's a huge question. And yeah, I don't feel I've always given or those I work with have necessarily given the best answer. And so that's something I definitely see the importance of being able to articulate that to students.
And the students changed too. I don't know if you've seen that, Amanda, but when I was in Florida, I was at the State College of Florida as a VP for 5 years before I moved into this role. Shout out to the Manatees. And in about 2016, 17, and I'd just come down from the University of Wisconsin colleges, and we noticed, and the folks that had been at SCF for a long time noticed as well, that all of a sudden in about 2017, students were walking in, and instead of saying, yeah, I'm not really sure what I want to do, I'm really trying to just, investigate and sort of find myself in my career, it went from that to almost overnight. And I think we can attribute this to maybe Gen Z saying, what's my career going to be? What's the likelihood I'm able to move up in this career? What's my starting salary going to be? And what are going to be my options after that? And it was a completely different kid that was walking in at 18, 19 years old, looking for something different. And they started to demand different things even before parents did.
But, again, we don't like to consider our students consumers or education of business, but they're essentially informed consumers now.
Very informed. It's unbelievable.
Somebody at Rice just went, is that Amanda talking? Oh my gosh, we're going to get her. No, they're not going to do that. It's the truth, though. I mean, think about it. I wrote an article recently for EdUp Editorials. You like that plug? And I was talking about the skip intro generation, right? And it's not just a student. It's us as humans. You go to Netflix or whatever, and you skip the intro. You can't even wait a minute. You skip it. You have command. You have control. Uber, right? And I use these examples because everybody goes, yeah, that's me. When you go to the airport and you're looking for an Uber and it says 12 minutes, you go, there's no way I'm waiting 12 minutes. You go out, you hit your destination again, and it goes to 9. You go, no way, 9 minutes, go out, hit the destination, go out, hit the destination until you get it to some acceptable number like 4 or 3 or 2 or whatever expectation you had. So we have this command over our personal journey, which is why none of us know how to get anywhere anymore, because we do get lulled to sleep sometime by technology. Like you go to Google Maps and it takes you somewhere and then you realize you cannot drive there without your map, even though you've been there 20 times because you're just used to following the direction. So we have to balance technology in the human part of it. But that's what consumers want. They want command and control of a journey. And how do we bring that to higher ed, Rich? How do we bring that level of control, or will it ever be brought in?
Well, I think some colleges, I'd say maybe 5% are heading in that direction. I think what I've told the college here is that we're going to take a 45-degree angle away from what the rest of the academy is doing. That includes R1s, tech colleges, regional universities, everybody.
That's a very popular statement to say, I'm sure, the first time you said it, right?
Not a lot of fans the first time. Especially amongst my dear friends in the faculty, who
Yes.
I do love, great relationship. But yeah, because it's a little bit scary when I said, look, if you're going to all the same conferences and meeting the same people, you're walking in with the same problems, you're walking out with the same solutions, you're talking to the same consultants, there's no wonder that the entire academy is almost in the same boat. And walking out with the same solutions that might work for a couple. But you can't take one model and drop it in somewhere else and expect it to work. And that's the only argument that I've ever seen a sociologist and a physicist agree on, that you can't take one model, drop it in somewhere else and expect it to work. And we've done that in higher education with all these cottage industries that have popped up. You're a member here, you're part of this, you're going to this. It's by and large all the same stuff. The one thing I would say is I really enjoy when faculty and researchers there talking about their latest paper or, the things that they're working on from that standpoint. But in terms of, and I came out of the student affairs realm, but in terms of enrollment and management, student affairs, some of the things provosts are talking about, a lot of those conversations haven't changed in decades. And so, I don't know who said this, but somebody once said, even if you're on the right road, if you're standing still or slowing down, you're going to get run over. Our issue is that society has overrun us. They're moving more quickly than we are. So I think some are moving in a direction where that experience that you're describing, Joe, might come to light. But I think there's got to be a bit of a balance, and I think not everything can or should be easy. And you can't get away from academic rigor. And actual grading, right? We can never, ever depart from academic rigor. But can we live in the 21st century? I think that we probably can. I think in the very near future here, for example, and some universities might already be doing this, but the day of sitting in front of a screen for online education is over. We just haven't gotten there yet. But nobody will know whether it's synchronous or asynchronous because they'll have oculars on and see their classmates and have questions coming out. And they won't know whether they're in a synchronous or asynchronous class. And I think that that's something that we can do to improve that experience overall, that no matter where you are in the world, it actually feels like you're in the classroom. It's not a MOOC. It's not, asynchronous. It's a real life experience. And I think that that's coming probably pretty quickly. And I know we've got lots of challenges with AI, but that's one of the good things that I think it'll bring. So I think we'll get down that road. I also think that we're at I don't know if it's a crisis point, because for all the years I've read the Chronicle of Higher Education, and it's a long time, we're always at a crisis point, right? If you go back 25 years, it's crisis point. 10 years ago, crisis. Today, it's crisis. It's like watching, the breaking news banner on CNN. It's there every 2 seconds. So I don't know if I'd call it a crisis point, but we're facing, I think, a significant challenge. So people are questioning the value of higher ed. We all know this, don't need to talk about that. This demographic cliff thing, we've seen this coming for 20 years, and the academy really has done nothing. And then the cost of higher education is, so many universities across that $50,000 threshold that it really makes it challenging. Now, for some of our universities, students will pay that, right? And even if they discount, they've got the funding to be able to pull it off, but many, many don't. So we're going to see more colleges close, more campuses close. I think those colleges and universities that are in the middle of the academy are the ones that face this most significant challenge. And those that deliver this type of experience that you're talking about change the way they operate and deliver an experience with unbelievable academic rigor at the same time while teaching and using AI in the classroom. I think we'll find some success.
I do want to take this back before I hand it over to you, Amanda, for a question, because I don't know if you know this, Rich, but I do have advanced hacking software over here at the podcast. So I have a recording of you in the moment after you told your faculty that you were going to take a 45-degree turn away from the academy. Let me see if I can play it.
Okay.
Are you not entertained?
I don't know where that came from, but that was a pretty raucous crowd.
Support the podcast trusted by higher ed leaders. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.
Yeah, no, it didn't take too long until I was able to point to failure here, success here, failure here. What kind of institution do you want to be a part of?
Data drives,
do you
right?
want to, Yes. Do you want to enter that death spiral where you start cutting programs because you've decided we're not going to change? And then you start eating your seed corn, as a farmer in Wisconsin once told me. Once you start eating your seed corn, you're done. And a lot of colleges and universities have started to do that because they are so committed to who they've been for the last 100 years, or what the academy has been for the last couple 100 years, that they're facing some significant challenges.
Amanda.
Yeah, so I have a question for you as far as like your own leadership journey. And I think one of the biggest moments, or maybe defining moments in someone's, becoming a leader or acting as a leader, is when they deliver a very unpopular message, And so what experience that took a lot of guts to do something that's right, even though it's not going to go over well. It's going to be an uphill battle the whole way. So what experiences in your past do you think helped create you to be the leader that you are today, to enable you to do those kinds of things?
Well, I think First of all, I think it starts with the folks that you watched early in your career, which I think is one of the travesties for this generation of leaders who many are working from home. So much of the time, they don't get to see leadership in action. That's a topic for another day. But for me, I think for me, it started out when I was a grad assistant at Central Michigan University. And I got to work with, report to some folks who were just outstanding leaders. And I think I'm one of the lucky folks where right out of undergrad into grad school, I got to see, without really knowing it at the time, this is good leadership. And I got to model myself after this. And I got to see some leaders at the director level that I reported to make some pretty tough and bold decisions, and how they handled it, and how they talked about it, and how they communicated. So that I think was the start. But the other thing, I think, so after I was at Central Michigan, my first job was at Rice University. And, I really didn't know what I was doing, quite
let's
frankly.
start the insanity.
And I think I was 24, and I was assistant director for operations in recreation. And I got there, and I can remember walking into my boss's office, the associate dean, and I said, "What do you think I should do about this?" And he looked at me and said, "Rich, we hired you to be the professional. So figure it out, and we trust your judgment." And from that point on, my few years at Rice, I took that really seriously. Like, these folks hired me to be the professional, and I need to figure this out and do the job. And so that was great training ground as well. Not that I could never go to the assistant dean, but it was really good for me to get set up that way. But I think it's also some of the, Warren Bennis writes about this in his book, the late Warren Bennis, in his book On Becoming a Leader. I think it was written in 1989 or something. But it's those big experiences where you have no idea exactly how you're going to handle this, and you can feel the overwhelming pressure that build up this reservoir, so that the next time you face something like this, it's not quite as detrimental. When I was at the University of Wisconsin colleges, there were major budget cuts across the University of Wisconsin system. And in my area, I was the associate vice chancellor for student affairs at UW colleges. And I had to cut about $7 million out of my divisional budget, and I had to lay off 49 people. And for folks that aren't familiar with UW colleges, there are 13 campuses that make up one institution across the state of Wisconsin, serving as the 2-year campuses of the UW system. And so I had to cut 49 people across those 13 campuses and eliminate about $7 million out of my budget, and then completely rebuild, redefine a new operational plan for the 13 campuses as it related to specifically to student affairs and enrollment, because that's what I was over. And so that experience in explaining to my staff, many who were 200 or 300 miles away from me in my office in Madison, and then getting people together to figure out how are we going to possibly do this, and lots of pressure from a number of areas. And I think, I had to lay off 49 people in about 2.5 days. And that was unbelievably challenging. But I thought back to my experience at Rice, 20 years before that, which was, we hired you to do this, figure it out and go. And so those experiences have helped me, all along the way. And in the role I'm in now, you face challenges as vice president, and in the role as president, there are an unbelievable number of challenges. And I think that the things that we're all facing, whether it's changes at the federal level, which impact things at the state level, and like on any good college university campus, everybody has their own opinion and everybody is correct. Managing that and managing the emotional capacity. Every institution has an emotional capacity. And I think a lot of us are at that point where that capacity can't handle much more. Managing that, keeping people calm, focused on the future, setting a moonshot. Don't worry about what's going on here, but this is where we're going. trust me, we've got a plan to get there. Those are all things that I think I learned, kind of along the way.
That emotional capacity piece is interesting as I have two people, and it looks like I cut out for a second, but I was saying
there you go.
I'm back. You can never get rid of me, even if you cut off my feed. I'll still talk to myself. But I worked in student affairs myself. Oversaw student affairs at a institution of about 7,000 students, and with all of us together, that emotional capacity piece is important, because when people hit their max on emotional capacity, especially if you look at right now, people have very strong opinions with what's happening at the executive level and government, and it can take attention away from what the core mission is, which is to serve students and do it well. And all of a sudden you're starting worried about these outside issues and you lose focus on the inside. And you have this giant atomic bomb called artificial intelligence that no matter what we think, how we act, what we do, that thing is it's going off. We could stop spending tomorrow, and artificial intelligence is going to keep going. We can not buy technology ever again, and artificial intelligence is going to keep going. There's no way to account for it. So how do we keep people focused on the core mission when we have so many distractions? I think that's a tough job for any leader in student affairs and at the presidential level.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it can become more difficult for the larger the institution you are. And because it's really difficult to know everybody or to have a relationship. And I don't know everybody. Like I said, we're about 18,000 students, and we've got the faculty and staff to support that. And so I don't know everybody, but I try to provide opportunities for them to get to know me. So I host what's called a college and communications meeting every month. And it's me virtually, because there's no way we could get everybody in the same room. It's just me sharing things live, and it's recorded, about the things that I'll tell people what I'm thinking about and saying, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this, but I want you to know I'm thinking about it, and I'll be back next month with some more plans. And so, in those meetings, I will share with folks, look, we're facing a lot of pressure. We're not facing as much as some other institutions, right? That have major research implications based on some of the changes federally. But we all have filter down impacts. And I think what I've learned is that there's a certain way that faculty and staff feel about the pressures that the college is facing related to these changes and challenges. There's a whole nother emotional aspect to it that they bring to campuses. They feel about these things personally. And those are two different things that often get conflated into being the same thing. And so what I've told the institution is, look, for all the things that are going on in the world and in our country, you're going to disagree with me from time to time on my approach. But my approach is to ensure the long-term viability of this institution. It's not to take a political point of view. It's not to go with what my core being says. I have to be and think for the college. And so I will always put the college, and therefore our students, ahead of what the current social dilemma challenge might be. I have to make sure that this institution thrives over the next 100 years, so that when I step off, we're continuing to accelerate. So what I've said is, we know what we're doing. And I think that that's a message that presidents and executive teams need to send to their faculty and staff, to say, and of course, there's 20% that will laugh at that, but to show that confidence, like, look, we know what we're doing. We've got a great executive team. We've got fantastic deans, and we are going to take care of all of this. So that, and we're going to hold all this stuff out here, and we're going to take care of it so that you can all do what's important, right? That articulation between the faculty member and the student in the classroom, lecture or lab. There is no substitute for that articulation point. We're going to protect that. Whether if you're working on research, we're going to protect that to the best of our ability. And while all these things are happening, we're also calling a moonshot, right? Our moonshot is AI. And if we had time to talk about that and things that we're doing, I could go into more detail. But, we're encouraging faculty to consider teaching, as I always say, curriculum, pedagogy, whatever happens in that area, none of my business. Academic freedom. But you'll have my support if you want to experiment with AI, because telling an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, don't use ChatGPT or Perplexity, it's like saying don't have a beer, right? So how do you drink responsibly? How do you use AI in the classroom? How can you teach with this? We've got to change that model a little bit. So there are definitely challenges, but I think having as much as you can a pulse on what's happening emotionally at your college and instilling confidence in people, right? We got this. We know what we're doing. Here's the overall plan. This is where we're going. Don't sweat it. I often tell, on those college communications meetings or at our kickoff in the fall, I'll say, look, sleep well. I know what you're hearing about the academy. I know you're hearing about college closing and people cutting jobs. We're not doing that here. This is why. Trust me. And so I think that kind of communication needs to happen. I also think that and there's mixed reviews on this, but the Calvin argument at the University of Chicago is a good one. And I think that when presidents comment on everything that's out there socially, whether they disagree with it or not, is a mistake. I think we need to speak on behalf of the institution and thinking towards 2040 and 2045. And, as I've told folks here, you can speak out and do whatever you want, but you cannot use the college as leverage in order to do that. And I hold myself to that same standard. So, I think managing that emotional thing, understanding that there are two pieces to that. One is what's happening to the college or university, and one is that emotional thing that's happening externally.
Man, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that was wonderfully stated. As I'm listening, I'm just still struck by how much courage you have. And so I find you very inspiring. So I just have to learn some of these things for myself.
Well, that's a real compliment. Thank you. I think that there's no doubt that there are times where I think, am I going in the right direction here? Where this is what I think, but I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
And it's important to show vulnerability to people.
Yeah,
right?
Authenticity. It matters so much.
It does, authenticity and vulnerability. But you can't do that in mass all the time. People need to know that the person directing things, or the president, chancellor, is confident and knows what they're doing. And sometimes, I'll get up and, like all presidents and chancellors, you get up in front of the college, whether it's at kickoff, in service, whatever, start of the fall semester, or even commencement or graduation, and you're talking, and you might not have it that day, but you got to have it, because there are no sick days, there are no vacation days, there are no days where you lack energy. Those days just don't exist. And if you let them exist, or let people see that they exist, I know some presidents and chancellors will disagree with me, and that's fine. But showing that you're on top of it, human, but on top of it, vulnerable, but confident, it's amazing how people will respond and what they'll do. And any leader, it doesn't matter whether you're leading 2 people or 20,000 or 200,000. The goal should be to have those folks emotionally attach themselves to the vision of the organization or institution, the vision that you're able to project, because you want to shift people from being paycheck players, right, to being in it for the right reasons. And people can't make that transition unless they feel confident in the person that's leading them.
It sounds to me like you're describing parenting in a lot of ways. How can you help your children feel confident that, you are in charge, you're in control,
Yeah.
And that they are protected and taken care of. And then other times where you do want to share that, you're also a human being, especially as our children get older. And so it's sometimes hard to decide, which side of you to show. But I think I compare a lot of things that I do as a professional to things that I have done as a parent. And so as you're describing that, it kind of reminds me of there's a lot of similarities there.
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe. $5.99 per month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Yeah, there probably are. It's all about human relationship, and the three things that ultimately matter as a leader are these, and that's inspiration, influence, and development. And they have to happen in that order, right? If you don't inspire somebody, you can't influence them, and if you can't influence them, you can't develop them. And those things have to happen. And I think that that's probably true in parenting. I think it's true in coaching. And I think it's true in terms of leading. So, we like to think that as humans, we've changed tremendously over the last couple hundred years. We still have the same old feats of clay, with a cell phone. And I think that that's to some degree true with artificial intelligence. Although I do think that artificial intelligence is probably the first species-changing technology that we've encountered. There will be others in the future. Who knows what they'll be, but this is the first species-changing technology that we've ever encountered. It's not fire, it's not the wheel, it's not electricity, it's not the internet. This is something very, very different. So when I'm 49, and when I die, hopefully I make it a few years, but if I die on schedule, human schedule, let's say, hopefully it's sometime in the 2060s. A little alarming, it's not that far away. There will be a humanoid nurse that's caring for me, right? That doesn't get tired, that doesn't break down, that is unbelievably charismatic, emotionally intelligent. That's where we're going. And so there are going to be these dramatic changes, and we're the generation right now, and that's a blanket generation, right? From Gen Z to the youngest baby boomers. We are that collective generation that sets the framework and the baseline for the very first species-changing technology. And I can't think of a more exciting time to be alive. Sure, there's moments of terror, and I can't think of a more exciting and terrifying time to be in higher education. But if we do things correctly, if we inspire, influence, and develop our teams, if we show confidence, if we have a plan for the future, I think that things will be just fine. And I think we'll manage the changes from the federal government level and the state level and the things that we're facing there. And I think it's a real opportunity for colleges and universities to step up, maybe in a way that we haven't in the last couple of decades.
Amanda, what did you think about your first co-hosting gig here with Dr. Rich Barnhouse?
Definitely one of the highlights of my life, and that's not a joke or an overstatement. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. Again, this was a bucket list item, so thank you so much for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for my guest co-host? The amazing Dr. Amanda Michelli. She is a student success specialist at Rice University and an all-around awesome human being and avid listener to the podcast. We appreciate your support, Amanda, and we hope that you come back to co-host again. You're fantastic.
I would love to. Absolutely. Anytime.
It always helps when you have a guest that is dynamic. And I think we have one of those dynamic guests with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest. No, he's your guest. He's Dr. Richard Barnhouse. He's the president at Waukesha County Technical College. Wow, it took me an hour to get it, but I got it. Rich, did you have a good time? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much. And Amanda, it's so nice to meet you, and so nice to meet somebody from Rice. Thank you so much, Joe. This has been tremendous, and I appreciate your work. I think that this is really important, and it's nice to listen to other presidents and chancellors just to glean some information. The work you're doing, I think, is really important, and it's one of those very few ways, Joe, where higher education is able to connect outside of consultants, outside of conferences, but to be able to sit down and listen to a colleague, a peer that I don't know, and just get some amazing information. So thank you so much for the work that you do in hosting this. And Amanda,
thank you, sir.
Awesome to meet you.
Thank you. Yes, very nice to meet you.
There you have it, everyone. An amazing episode of this podcast. You just EdUp'd.